Happy Sunday, everybody, and I am a few minutes late, day late, not a day late, dollar short, but not a day late, only about 9 minutes late, and I do apologize for my tardiness, but you're going to benefit from it. So grab a pen, grab a pencil, click the like, click the subscribe, click the thumbs up, click all of the things and do all of the things so that we can hang out here every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Mountain. Or if you can't be here at 10 a.m. Mountain, then hopefully you will be here a little bit later. So if you have been waiting for me, I do apologize for being late. If you weren't waiting, well then, I'm glad you're here. So good morning, Del. Good morning, Mom. Okay, we are making French crullers this morning. Now, I have a little bit more experimentation to do on this, and I got to tell you, this original recipe came from, where did it come from? It came from somewhere. Let me look, because I printed it off and then had to, debsdailydish.com, and these are low carb glazed donuts. Now, I will say not every recipe on that website is low carb or keto, and that's something that I want to talk to you guys about, and I will talk to you about that as we are building this recipe, because we need to build glaze for it as well. So okay, let me just, there you go. I'm going to let you see what I'm doing here. Get our bowls out. Now we're going to need 2 bowls. The first one, grab a single mesh strainer. There are some recipes that we do where sifting your ingredients is really important, and using a regular old flour sifter from back when we were using wheat flour doesn't usually work so well. So what we are going to do today is we're going to use a single mesh strainer. Now if you look at a double mesh strainer, which I will show you. Now a double mesh strainer is just exactly what it sounds like. It has 2 layers of mesh. If you're doing strained tomatoes or something like that, a double mesh strainer is very important. But for this, we're wanting this to act like a sifter. So we are adding 30 grams of coconut flour. And if you get this all measured out beforehand, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to tap this with a silicone spoon so you guys don't have to hear it so much. If you get it all measured out beforehand, you don't have to worry about setting this down into your ingredients. And then we're adding 100 grams of almond flour. Now one of these days, I'm going to try. Now when you're doing this, tip this a little bit, because every time you hit this side, it pulls the flour this way. So if you hold this flat, the flour is going to start jumping out the side. So yes, that is the voice of experience. So just tip this to about a 30-degree angle-ish, and then just tap it until your flour all goes through. You can mix it in the strainer too, just like this. So I find that it's a little bit easier just to tap it. Okay, so something that I have been seeing a lot of lately, and I want to address this because there are, every day, there's another YouTube channel, there's another blog, there's another Facebook page, there's another something that says keto, whatever the recipe is. Your job is to be an investigator. And I cannot even tell you how important this is. Your keto journey is yours. And if you are wanting to do clean keto, then you need to make a point of finding out what is in the ingredients that you're planning on using, and or what's in the recipe, what ingredients are in the recipe that you're planning on using, and are those ingredients keto? There is no such thing. Now, listen to me very carefully when I tell you this. There is no such thing as keto wheat flour. I don't care what the company says. It is not a thing. I don't care if it's just Vital Wheat gluten and the rest of the wheat isn't there. It is not keto. It is incredibly inflammatory, and if you want to kick yourself out of ketosis, stall your weight loss, increase your inflammation, then that is entirely up to you. Now this is 2 teaspoons or 9 grams of xanthan gum. And we're just going to put this in our dry ingredients, and then we're adding 1 teaspoon or 5 grams-ish. There we go, of baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder. Okay, and then the last ingredient that we are adding is 70 grams of erythritol, granular erythritol. Now, granular is the cheaper form of erythritol. You can use allulose, you can use xylitol. If you're not using erythritol because of an allergy, use a different sweetener and it will be just fine. Okay, now we have these in here. If I stir them with this spoon, I am risking creating lumps. So, I'm going to grab my dough whisk. Now, whatever whisk you have, just use a whisk to get this all mixed up. And we want to make sure that this is all blended really well, so we don't end up with any lumps of anything. And a dough whisk, I'm going to have to get a smaller one. This is a pretty big dough whisk. I use this for making keto bread, and it works so well. It's so much easier to stir with than a spoon. Just works like a charm. Okay, that is pretty good. Now, we're just going to set that there. Now, second bowl, wet ingredients. First thing we are going to add is 4 large eggs. Extra large if you want is fine. Now, did you know that you can use different whisks for different things? That is true. That's a thing. Look at all the dishes we're making. Okay, so we've added 4 eggs, and to that we are going to add 140 grams of coconut oil. Now, I've put this in the microwave for about a minute so that it's liquid, because otherwise it would not be, and we don't want to try and whisk in solid coconut oil. That's not going to be very successful. Okay, and then an egg whisk. I am learning so much about whisks. Are not something that I ever really knew anything about, and this little egg whisk is just the most amazing thing, especially if you're doing egg whites or you want to incorporate a lot of air into your eggs. This is awesome. Now, as we're beating this up and we're getting the eggs and the oil all emulsified together, we are just going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And a big shout out to my youngest son CJ and his wife Terry. Actually, truth be told, probably more Terry, because she loves to cook as much as I do, and they brought me that vanilla back from one of their trips. So, okay, now, once this is all beaten together really well, and this is a good workout for your arm too. If you are having shoulder issues, use your mixer. That'll be fine. Okay, now let's put that in there. Coffee this morning is butter caramel. And it is marvelous, I must say. Now, this recipe, for the most part, was pretty good. Now, we're going to incorporate the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients and make this a thick dough. Now, remember, when you're doing this, first of all, you still need your silicone spoon to scrape out your eggs and your coconut oil so that you're getting, and your vanilla. Don't want to miss any of that. Okay, now, then your dough whisk. Do not try and use your mixer on this. It won't work, I promise. A stand mixer would, but not your hand mixer. This is going to be way too thick. Now remember, we've used coconut flour in here. And the coconut flour, you can see how watery this is right now. And if you watch this as we stir it, even though this is thoroughly incorporated right now, but as this sits with the coconut flour in it, the coconut flour is so absorbent, it's going to turn this batter into almost like a dough. Okay, so while that is doing its dough thing, whoops, yeah, I'm just going to spray that all over the place. We're just going to take this out of here. Now, I pre-made a batch of these donuts this morning just to test this recipe out. And I will tell you, they turned out marvelously. So, thank you to Deb for posting this recipe. Now, what I will say, though, is we're going to do a little bit of an experiment when it comes to glazing these. Have you ever had a French cruller? They were absolutely one of my favorites. And when I was much younger, I lived in northwestern Alberta, and there was a grocery store up there that made a cheddar cheese cruller. And I think things are probably always better in your memory than they are, or than they were in reality. But I will tell you, those cheddar cheese crullers were absolutely amazing. Okay, now, if you have a donut pan, because we're going to bake these in the oven at 350 for 22 minutes. If you have a donut pan or a bagel pan, that's great. If you don't, line a sheet pan with parchment paper, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. Okay, now, if you have a piping bag, that's awesome. If you don't have a piping bag, that's okay too. Now, these are not going to have the same ridges that a French cruller traditionally has, but that's okay because, and there it is gone. Okay, well, this is going to work just fine. Now, you can see that this dough is gone from being a batter to being a dough already. So just in a freezer bag, I wouldn't use a sandwich bag. I don't think they're going to be strong enough. So I would use a freezer bag if I were you, but if I'm wrong, you let me know what brand of sandwich bags you're using, because I'm pretty sure the ones that I have would not be strong enough for this. And we're going to put all of the batter in our bag. And we may not have cruller ridges, although I suppose we could try cutting them in. I never tried that with the last batch. But we are going to get our dough punched down in here. And I found out the hard way with the first batch, you have to remember to zip up your freezer bag. Remembering the important details. They call them important details for a reason. Okay, now, we're just going to close this up. And now, don't close it up all the way. Close it so that you've got just a wee little bit left at the end, and then squeeze out all the air. Get this all mushed down in there. And once you've, there, I finished closing it. Once you've got it all down into one corner pretty much, then finish zipping this up. There you go. Okay, now, we're going to get the dishes out of the way. Just like this. Now see, this is what happens when I don't have a production crew. Yes, no production crew means Sharon has to do all of her own grunt work, but that's okay. Now, I am lucky enough. I am just such a lucky lady. This was a gift from someone that watches the show, and I was just so thrilled when I received it. It was such a surprise, and for a long time I had no idea who sent it. So, if you're watching, Kelly, thank you very much. I really appreciated this. So, good morning, Tammy. I'm glad you could be here. You know, okay, there. Now, I've got this all squished down into one corner, and the only thing empty is just this little tip. And so now we are just going to cut the tip off, make sure it doesn't go into your pan. And you only want an opening that's about 1/2 inch wide. That's about as much as you want to do. And then we are just going to squeeze this into our donut pan, just like that. Now, if you have a piping bag, or if you want these to be a little thicker, this is about the right size for me, and this pan holds 9, and this, the last batch that I did 9 just perfectly. Now, if I had been able to get my piping bag and my tip out, it's on a high shelf and my shoulder still does not want to lift weights down from that height. So we are just doing this, but that's good because it just shows you do not need to go out and spend ridiculous amounts of money on a whole bunch of kitchen supplies just to do something like this. So you can see what I'm doing here. These are not going to run together. So if you wanted to put parchment paper on a sheet pan and do this, that would work out just marvelously. And there's another one. I think I've been a little bit cheap with the dough on one of these, because I'm going to have more than 9 donuts worth. Okay, well, I have a couple more, and that's okay because I have, move this one over here. I have another silicone donut tray. Twist this a little bit. And we'll see how many more we get in here. Okay, so you know, it depends on how big the hole is. If you have a piping bag and a tip, then you're going to have exactly the same size every time. So this ends up not being an issue. Okay, get over here. This one is going to be a little bit bigger. And we're going to call this one a test strip. There we go. Okay. And a donut hole, that's what that is. I don't know if cruller holes were ever a thing. Okay, and in the garbage with that, these go in a 350 degree oven for 20 minutes, or 22 minutes, and then when they come out, we're going to do something amazing with them. Okay, so in the oven they go. Alexa, set a 22-minute timer.
22 minutes, starting now.
All right, now.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Alexa, stop. See, she doesn't know everything. She knows a lot of stuff, but she doesn't know everything. Now, these are the first ones. Now, if you are familiar with crullers, you will remember that crullers have a really nice ridge in them, and they are glazed. So, there was a glaze recipe with this that was a complete and total fail. Not just sure what happened with that, but we are going to redo it in a different way that is going to work. So what we need, first of all, is a pot, and we are going to add 110 grams of xylitol. Now I'm using xylitol in this recipe because xylitol doesn't crystallize as it cools. And if it does crystallize, I guess really it isn't the end of the world. Now the next thing we're doing is we are just sprinkling very carefully. There we go. A 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum, and then to that we are going to add 30 milliliters of water just to get this started. And just turn this a wee little bit so that you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, now, where is my, aha, I know where it is. It is right there. Now we're going to turn this on. Now this is not going to be a glaze if we don't add some fat to it. It's just going to be melted sugar that's going to be super crusty. So what we are going to do, now when I get things set up in the morning, I weigh out all my ingredients. And this called for 140 grams of coconut oil, which absolutely is way too much. And so I have 140 grams measured out here, but we are only going to use 37, we'll do 40 grams. We'll get another 3 grams going on here. Okay, now the idea here is when we do this, two things are true. First of all, stirring it with that isn't going to have nearly as good a results as stirring it with a sauce whisk, because the sauce whisk is going to incorporate that xanthan gum really well, and you definitely want that to be mixed in there, not lumped in there. Xanthan gum is an amazing ingredient, but oh my goodness, it just makes such a mess if you don't sift it and then make sure that it's whisked in properly. Okay, now I've got this on high because I want this to heat up quickly. And this is beautiful already. Now, it says to cook this down for 5 minutes, and I don't really think that it needs to be cooked down that long. Definitely want to taste this and see if it's sweet enough. You know what? So I've gone from 140 milliliters, or 140 grams of coconut oil down to 40 grams of coconut oil, and I am still not tasting the sweetener in this. So I can, however, see that this is getting much, much thicker with the xanthan gum in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more xylitol, and I am thinking that the xylitol should be almost doubled, so I'm not going to put quite that much in there. We're going to add about another 90 grams, and we'll see how that goes. Now the nice thing about this is, if this ends up being too sweet, I can tone it down. If it ends up still being not sweet enough, now we just need to heat this enough to make sure that that xylitol is melted. And I'm going to grab another little tester. Make sure we know what we're doing. Okay, well, guess what, folks? I did it again. I love these little beakers. They are so cool. But that little 1 teaspoon beaker is just the easiest thing in the world to knock over. And guess what I just did? Just knocked it over again. Okay, so this is definitely melted. So we're going to get the vanilla again. I'm thinking maybe when I'm using this little 1 teaspoon beaker, I should wait until I actually need it to use it. Okay, 1 teaspoon of vanilla in there. Now the water is just so that we have something to boil out. And the vanilla goes in right at the end. If you have a clear vanilla, that's awesome. If you don't, that's okay too. Okay, now we are just going to, we're going to get this scale out of the way is what we're going to do. There we go. We're just going to pour this into a bowl. Okay, now get all of this glaze out of here. This is much, much nicer. So you need about 200 grams of xylitol for this recipe. Now if you want to try it out with different recipes or with different sweeteners and see if that makes a difference, that is absolutely marvelous. Now the original recipe for this, she said that she dipped the crullers in it twice, which is just fine. But we're not going to have to with this because it's much, I mean, you can if you want, but this glaze is much thicker. And so we are just going to dip them and then set them on parchment paper and let that glaze cool. And I'm just going to use my sauce whisk to dip these with. Okay, now, question. If you were me and you had all of these donuts, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 donuts here, and I've got more in the oven, what would you do with them so that you didn't end up eating them all yourself? Well, it turns out that I am going to be going to have lunch with family today. And even though we are going to be having lunch at a restaurant, I think maybe I will take these in for dessert and we can have dessert wherever we have dessert. Okay. Now these are beautiful, and this glaze, you can see, I hope you can see, that the glaze is sticking to it and it's soaking into the crullers too. So this is going to be wonderful. Now you can dip these with a fork if you want. But with no production crew here, it's kind of important that I don't get any more dishes dirty than I have to. So I am not going to double dip these, and this is going to be enough glaze that when these others come out of the oven, I will be able to glaze those as well. So, and you can tell who I'm having lunch with because my mom just told me that I just read her mind. So I think she would love it if I just moved into her house Saturday night and moved out on, I don't know, Sunday afternoon or Monday morning. Pretty sure, as much as I love my mom, we would get sick of each other. Maybe that's how come family members that are very close because they don't have to live together. I don't know. Bring an extra for your mom. Yeah, well, I don't know that it's going to have to be an extra. I guess we'll see how popular they are. Okay. Get in there. I should have maybe gotten a wider bowl. I don't know. Okay. Thinking a turkey skewer would work really well for this too. Just flip it over and through the hole to get, oh, and there we go. This one is double dipped. And there we go. Now, look at that. Look at how easy that was. And not a chance that she'd let me move in is what I'm thinking. Okay, so the very first one that we did is going to be the one that is cooled off the most. Now, look at the glaze on that. It is absolutely lovely and sticky. It's not going to get crispy like sugar glaze would. And I don't know if you can see how pillowy soft these are well, you can't see pillowy soft, but you can see that they look like they're cakey in texture, but they really are not. Okay, well, definitely messy, definitely crispy on the outside, definitely amazing on the inside. Not exactly like a cruller, but oh my goodness. It really is amazing. So, if you missed any of this, 30 grams of coconut flour, 100 grams of almond flour, 2 teaspoons or about 14 grams actually of xanthan gum, a teaspoon of baking powder, 70 grams of sweetener, and that is getting crispy, so this is going to get crispy on these crullers. 4 tablespoons or 140 grams of coconut oil, and you want that melted but not hot. And then a teaspoon of vanilla and 4 beaten eggs. And when you get this all mixed up, sift your dry ingredients. When you get it all mixed up, 22 minutes in a well, not a chance she would get tired of me. She says that now. But I love the fact that she believes that. When you get this all mixed up, you want it in a 350 degree oven for 22 minutes. And then enjoy. Now, we've gone a little bit over. Man, oh man. We've gone a little bit over, but here's what I love about this recipe. This recipe is 100% keto. Arrowroot flour, not keto. Glaze on my chin. There are so many tapioca starch, not keto. The fact that something says keto on the package does not mean that it's keto. So, use your, just a second. Use your investigator skills. Read the ingredients, not just in a package that you're buying, but read the ingredients in a recipe. The fact that it says low carb or keto does not mean that it is. Some of the biggest names in the keto world have put up recipes that have arrowroot flour or tapioca starch in them. Those are not keto ingredients. Now, if you're doing dirty keto, then I guess you might want to make that exception. Any kind of wheat. If the word wheat or gluten is anywhere in it, it is not keto. And the fact that something says gluten-free does not mean that it's keto. Cornstarch is gluten-free, definitely not keto. So, if it is a tuber, if it is a grain, if it is a sugar, including dextrose or any honey, organic honey or organic agave, organic cane sugar, that's one of my favorite ones, and I see that in products that are marketed as keto friendly all the time, and they are not keto friendly. So, no. Now, what is going on there? I do not know. Oh, there we go. Okay, so do your own sleuthing. You're going to figure this out. Make some crullers. If you can make ridges in them, do that. And enjoy a very keto Sunday. And please, I am definitely going to have to make some fresh ones when my husband gets home, because he's going to be gone for a week and these might be a little old by then. I think they would probably freeze really well, although I haven't done it. So again, thank you to Deb at, see, now I've forgotten the website again already, at debsdailydish.com for sharing this recipe. The ingredients in it were keto. The glaze for these did not work at all, but use the recipe that we used today, and I think you will be thrilled with it. Have an amazing Sunday. Reach out to someone that you love and make sure that they know that they are loved and thought about, and it will make your day just as bright as it makes theirs. And I am going to go and spend time with family this afternoon, and I am definitely taking them some donuts. So thank you for being here. Click the like and the subscribe and do all the things and follow and all of that kind of stuff. I will see you next Sunday, still working on that sourdough bread recipe. I will see you next Sunday. Maybe I will have it ready by then. And until then, you have an amazing week. Do the